Okay, excellent. So let me give a little bit of a lecture about what a green meeting is about, from my point of view, and the object of the whole exercise. So we have spent, well, 10 days or something like that with Kerry, so 10 hours each, 40 hours plus however much preparation and whatever has gone into it around that. So quite a bit of chunk of time we have spent trying to do something together. And that something, I think, is that we have tried to grasp what Kerry's inner experience is like, given that we've got something like 50 samples of it. Those 50 samples have come over a couple of months, 3 months, 4 months, maybe something like that. I forget exactly, but it's a sort of a long time. And now we would like to be able to say something about, well, what's Kerry's inner experience like? If somebody were to say to us, what is her experience like? What can we say about that? And not only would we like to answer that question, but we would like to answer that question in a way that there's some warrant behind as being sort of faithful to Kerry's experience. And so the green meeting is designed to further that, because it takes into account, it accepts that we've more or less, A, forgotten what happened on the first few sampling days, and B, that what happened on the first few sampling days were not necessarily in line with Kerry's experience at that time, because we didn't know Kerry very well or at all, and so we had some practice to do it. So we're going to go back and we're going to review all of the samples and try to bring them back to life in a way that then we can remember them. And when we do that, we're going to have the reverse probability that we had, the first problem that we had before, and that is that as we go through the samples today, then by the time we get to the end of this review, which might take us several hours, we might have forgotten what has happened at the beginning of this review. So the object is to try to come up with some way of fixing these things in our memory so that we can deal with them. And and what we're going to do, excuse me, I have a cold and it's showing up here when I have to talk for more than 30 seconds at a time. What we're going to do is we're going to start at the end, which I think is the samples that we have the most likelihood of having been faithful to Kerry's experience in the first place. And we're going to reawaken those, and then we're going to work backwards from day 9 to day 1. And when we do that, we're going to write what I call a caption. And the caption is supposed to keep in mind for us what happened in that particular sample in ways that we can then remember when we try to summarize. So that's sort of the general sense of what I think we're going to do. Any questions or comments about that? Maybe we should just do it, and people get a chance to see it.
I always have a question. Why do you not do this as you go?
Because we presume that we did not understand Kerry's samples at the outset.
Yep.
That we think that it's at least possible, if not likely, that by the time we get to day 9, we will understand something about Kerry's second day sample that we didn't understand at day 2 or day 3 or day 4 or whatever. I'm not sure that's sort of true in Kerry's case. I think it was definitely true in Mel's case, because we had to bash some of Mel's characteristics back and forth for quite some time. Kerry's were, I'm thinking, somewhat simpler to grasp. And
yeah, but you're saying you need a more holistic approach or holistic understanding before you can probably go back and characterize things.
That's close. I'm not sure I would say holistic. I would say more faithful. I think holistic envisions that you can sort of keep the whole thing in mind, which I don't think is possible, actually.
Yeah.
And but I think we can do. I think we can do better on the 9th day than we did on the second day or the first day.
Yeah, agree.
So first off, this I should have deleted before I sent this to you. This was notes to myself, so I'm going to delete that. And then we're going to go to day 9. And we are going trying to find the beginning of day 9. I guess I'll search for it, day 9. Okay. So we got some color coding in mind here. So the purple display is what we have more or less agreed is a description of the sample, and we can change that as we go. But we're going to write something in green at the same time here. So we're going to write in green what's going to be called the caption, and we're going to look at this sample and all the conversation that we had about this sample, and then we're going to write a caption, and the caption is going to try to convey what the characteristics of this sample is. It's sort of a content-free, mostly content-free thing. So if she's got imagery, we're going to talk about imagery or whatever. Not because we want to know what the imagery is. The imagery would be in the purple characterization. So let's just launch into it, and let's take a look at this. And I guess I would also like to say that the point of the whole exercise, the whole DES exercise, is to get at Kerry's experience. It is not to get at what we've said about Kerry's experience. What we have said about Kerry's experience in purple or black or whatever is a tool that aims back at Kerry's experience. We're trying to get past using the purple display and what conversations we have had about it. We're trying to get back to Kerry's experience as it was, and we're going to accept that that's not. We're going to fall short of perfection in that, but that's our goal. So what I would say about this is that this is words rolling out. Maybe not even words rolling out. Maybe it's just saying out loud, speaking out loud. And that there wasn't much else.
This one I actually was going back to the video today doing some transcript stuff. And Kerry was looking at her roommate's face. You were looking at your roommate's face. And then we talked about how we didn't go into that enough in the interview. And Russ, you wrote that too, that we kind of didn't go into that enough. In that case, do you think we should try to include it here or just say it's water under the bridge?
How about including that in the green medium, in the green caption? Does that do it?
Sounds good to me.
So we can go back and look at a video. Everything that we do takes time, and the question is whether it's profitable to do that. By putting it in the green meeting, if it were to turn out that when we've gotten through looking at all 40-some samples, that we will have seen a lot of maybe looking at the face, then maybe we'll have to go back and look at it. But if this is the only one,
okay,
then it seems like we can sort of slide on it. But we're not sliding on it. We're suspending judgment about it.
I remember at least one other. But yeah, we can. Okay. Or the dog.
So you said a minute ago, Julian, that I said that we didn't check on that. Is that in the transcript or someplace?
Yeah, that's in the transcript and your commentary. Yeah. Because Kerry's original description was much more about you were looking at your roommate, Gracie, looking at her face, and then
yeah, I would say, I can't remember how I split it, but I would say
I think gotta
upon
reconnect.
reflection, I would guess that's like around 50-50. Like I was looking at her face, but also speaking that. But I don't know if it's helpful to say.
Did you ever see better Wi-Fi?
So I've got a couple of comments about that.
Down.
One is that Kerry is clearly in a different position regarding these experiences than the rest of us. But I don't agree that that makes her the best, that she's in a better position. There are quite a few philosophers that think that she's got absolute perfect recollection and things like that. I don't think that's true. I think she has a perspective that's different from ours and is valuable. Maybe in some situations more valuable, maybe in some situations less valuable. I'm not trying to make a judgment about that. What I think we should be doing is accepting that we have one person who's a different animal from the others of us here, and that Kerry had access to her experience at least at one time. On to number 2.
Sure.
So what I'm going to say about this is at the end we're going to say worlds roll out. So I'm going to start with
It's rolling out.
words rolling out, but I put that as a comma. It means that's the last thing, but we have to figure out what we're going to say about this thing here.
Like looking at text.
Yeah.
Text.
But it's not just looking at text, it's wonderingly looking at text, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And maybe a separate wondering.
Uh-huh. Although I don't think so. In the transcript, you were more leaning away from separate wondering too.
Okay.
But it's still possible. Above, did we want to include surprisedly in somewhere in there? Can we go up to the sample above? Do we want to capture something of the surprise, like surprisedly speaking out loud? So like that's not my experience about like dating on Hinge. I'm just wondering how much we want to capture in these captions.
So that's a good question, and the answer to that is I don't think anybody knows the answer to that question. What I think is that the caption has to satisfy everybody, and that doesn't mean that it has to equally satisfy, or it has to satisfy everybody for the same reason. What it means is that Julian has the responsibility for making this caption mean something to him about what we're talking about here. And Mel has that same responsibility, and Kerry does, and Russ does. But that does not mean that we have to agree about it. If Julian thinks that the surprisedly is an important deal, then he's going to want to get that into the caption. Mm. So this is not a let's agree on things exercise. This is a let's commit ourselves as individuals to what I thought. Each one of us has to be, this caption conveys what I thought.
I would say for this one, maybe a small element of surprise, but what I think is maybe more accurate would be like exacerbation. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's...
All of that feels so fraught with danger to me here, Russ, in terms of like, this is someone coming, this is the first time I've seen green meetingness happen, but like, geez, how do you ever, every sample I'm going to go, oh, she excitedly said, she disappointingly, like that feels like a can of worms that never ends. If you're getting a motive.
From my perspective, it would mostly be for these first two, because we like discussed a lot in the interview, like if there was surprise there or if it was kind of just part of the speaking. But I see that as a thing with these first two samples, but I don't see that every sample we're gonna be like shockingly sad.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing I think that Julian said, except a little bit more general, and that is that I think we can trust the process.
Okay.
That if surprisedly or exasperately or whatever turns out to be an important thing, then we'll see that frequently. And if it's not, then well, we worried about it this time, and maybe we overemphasized it. Maybe we did.
Okay.
But that I think will fall away.
Okay.
I do think that it's better if when in doubt, it's better to put something in, because then it can fall away. If you don't put something in, then you're going to rely on the ability to remember. Well, I think we should have put that in back there in sample 9.1, and that's a harder thing to do. So maybe I should talk a little bit about what's going to happen. So when we're done, we're going to have a whole list of all of the captions and all of the purple stuff and all the rest of the stuff for that matter. And then we're going to then I'm going to ask each of us, when we're done with that, I'm going to ask each of us to characterize Kerry's experience independently. I'm going to ask you, within a day after we're done with this process, within a day, I'm going to say, write a characterization, brief characterization of Kerry's experience, what you think the highlights are. And that can be an outline, or it can be 10 words, or it can be 100 words, or whatever. The object isn't to be loquacious. The object is to capture what you think are what I call the ideographic characteristics of Kerry. If we're going to describe Kerry's 50 experiences, this is what we've got to have in there. And then, so Mel's going to do that, and I'm going to do that, Kerry's going to do that, Julian's going to do that. Then we'll put them all together, and we'll come up, now we have to start to be sort of jointly about it. Well, actually, not even yet, but so we're going to get a list of the characteristics that each of us think are important. And then, all done individually, but then together we're going to make a document that has all these things in it. And then we're going to have one more task, and that is for each of you, I'll make up a document that gives you a chance for each of one to apply all those characteristics to all the samples. So, for example, we might end up with a characteristic like Kerry is reacting with emotion with something that she sees in the environment. And for sample 9.1, people would say, well, yeah, that's true. We'll give that a 1. We'll say that was present there, but it wasn't present in all the rest of those things. That's going to give us the sort of the way of counting into Kerry's ideographic experiences.
And then is the idea that after we've characterized each individual one, that you have a general breakdown of like, not percentage, I guess, but because I don't know if you like doing percentages, but a general, you're kind of majority visual versus auditory, and you thought you were auditory, because that's kind of my general takeaway. But yeah.
Well, there's one more step that I haven't yet described, and that is so I've asked that you're all going to rate. I'm going to make a spreadsheet basically, and everybody will have rated. This is present. This ideographic characteristic is present in sample 9.1 and in 9.5 and 8.2 and whatever. Everybody gets a chance to do that, and then we're going to have what we call the rectification meeting. If we were to do the whole thing, the rectification meeting is we would get together and we would discuss when we disagreed about these things. And that will, and the purpose of the rectification meeting is not just a rate or reliability issue, but it's a ideographic characteristic reliability issue. Did we have an did we between us have a different opinion about what this characteristic of Kerry was. And now we have to hash it out because on sample 8.5, Kerry thought that she was surprisedly whatever, and Mel thought she wasn't. And so what's that about? And then, after we're done with that, which is to say, after we know what we're talking about, that's the way of determining that we know what we're talking about. Because we're in agreement that we can rate these things, or we've hashed out the disagreements. Now we know what we're talking about as best we can know. And then we're going to do what Kerry asked us to do, which is to say, characterize what her experience is. So the whole procedure is basically all aimed at, can we describe Kerry's experience?
It's dense, Russ.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot.
That's the risk of trying to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know.
But then it can involve percentages at the end, like we can say.
And then it can, yes. And then at the end we can say, we have agreed that 14 out of the samples are visual imagery. And we know what we're talking about by visual imagery. 14 of them were like that. Then we'll be able to say 14 out of 46 or whatever it is.
Cool.
Now, whether we all get that far as a group, that's another question. But that would be the procedure.
Have you ever done it with this many people and with the interviewee before?
Yes.
Cool.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Is the Kerry person usually present in
Usually
this?
not.
No.
But not all. But I don't have a rule about that.
Okay.
If the Kerry person is particularly interested in it for whatever reason, then I have no objection to having the Kerry person there. I don't think that screws up the process.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it just doesn't work out that way.
Most of the time they say come back with the percentages.
Right. Or most of the time they were subjects in the research and they think we're done or we think we're done or whatever. It does add the risk that Kerry has a different perspective, and then we have to deal with that, and that takes time. And time is out, money, and whatever. So, are we happy with this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am.
And when I say are we happy, what I really mean is, are you happy, Kerry? And are you happy, Mel? And are you happy, Julian? I don't mean it as, do we have some joint understanding here? The joint understanding is going to happen, but that doesn't happen until after the rectification meeting, really. As it is now, disagreement is a desirable thing.
This is such a niche, moment.
So I think this is an inner seeing,
Mm-hmm.
which my code for is I see, like that. I see means for me inner seeing. The advantage of that is that if I search for ISEE, I get this.
Would you include that I was also listening and doing the dishes, or is it more about the inner seeing?
Yeah,
The dishes, as I understood it, was not in your experience.
I would say that's pretty accurate, yeah.
But the hearing of the podcast was. I'm hearing this podcast.
Yeah.
But I think I interrupted you, Julian.
I was going to say the same.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the inner seeing. Like this one is one of the ones where she said like she could see it in front of her. If I remember correctly, I don't necessarily think they were always in front, or like there was differences in how she was seeing things in front of her, in terms of like transparency and size and things, and I think that feels like a relevant characterization to make. I don't know how, but I see no borders. Yeah.
I like how whatever you said, Mel, appeared in text as you...
Yeah, that's great.
So I agree with that. All of those things.
I
think we're going to have to figure out what all these things mean, but this is...
Is transparent the right word? And I know I don't know how to explain this, but it doesn't seem translucent when I'm seeing it, but I can also see behind it. I don't know how to explain that.
Did we get to, does opacity feel right for you? Some level of opacity, or that's still not right? It is like literally the same as the apartment, yeah, we did discuss that, hey?
Like it feels like 100% opacity, but I guess because I know it's not real.
Yeah, I don't remember this one being lower opacity, but some of them you did describe. Maybe the yurt one when we get to that. But I remember, I don't remember this one having lower opacity.
I have definitely had like lower opacity inner seeing before, and this one does not.
So does not block better than transparent?
Yeah, because it's not like I think that's right. Because it's 100% opacity, but it's not obstructing my view, which sounds like it directly contradicts itself, but that makes sense to me.
Perfect. And this is an example of what the advantages of the green meeting are. This is we are trying to take a step towards being able to describe Kerry's experience. And I put some characters out here transparent, and Kerry says, no, it's not transparent, and she's right about that. We got a chance to fix the words, improve the words, and maybe later on we'll be able to make it even better than that.
Kerry, I'm wondering, you have a different perspective than us. Like, do these come back to you, or are they vivid? Like, do you...
Yeah, so now when we're talking about this moment, I'm now seeing my same perspective. Like, I'm like taking myself visually back to where I was in that beep, where the fridge was, which was diagonally left in my field of vision. And so I'm trying to recreate that. Obviously, it's probably not perfectly accurate because memory is not accurate, but that's
the video.
what I'm doing right now.
I love you saying that before Russ could do it. Wait, another thing, because I really struggle to understand this version of inner experience, so a thing that would be helpful for me, and I can't remember if it was different or not all the time, but in terms of like whether it's 2D or 3D, was it ever different for you? Like, were they always 2D, or were there differences? But if there are differences, I feel like something like that is a helpful note for me to try and understand what this is.
Yeah. Most are 3D. I don't think I've ever had, I'm trying to think back. I would say there are some instances where it feels like an image with no crisp line. So it feels like a scene, and sometimes it feels like thinner and less immersive. So the immersive ones would be like clear 3D, whereas this one I would describe as 3D, but it's not as immersive, which in a way sometimes feels like 2D, which is really hard to explain. I'm so sorry.
So I'm not sure that I understand what the difference between 2D and 3D is. So let me try it this way. Does it seem? Well, I'm guessing asking Mel. Is 2D? By 2D does it mean I'm not looking at my refrigerator? I'm not seeing my refrigerator. I'm seeing a picture of my refrigerator. That would be 2D.
That's
if I'm seeing my refrigerator, neither one of them are present to me, of course, but if I'm seeing my refrigerator, then that's 3D. Is that correspond to what you mean, Mel, by the difference between 2D and 3D?
What I'm trying to say is, again, and I think it's because I don't experience this, so I'm trying to understand, but like in my head it feels like, okay, she can see an object in front of her that is like real, so like I'm trying to understand whether it's flat or whether it's got depth to it in the way that the book that's next to me does have depth, and I can tell it's a real object. But I guess the more I speak, the more I'm suspecting that it looks like every other real object based on the way she's described things. So they're all 3D then.
I also think maybe just ignore what I just said about 2D, 3D. I think the real distinction for me in terms of like depth of field is actually the size of the inner seeing. So when I saw the car driving along the street, that to me felt very 3D because it was relatively the same size as the physical car driving in front of it. But when I'm visualizing this fridge, I'm seeing it out of the corner of my eye and it's small. It's just like a smaller image. So it feels like it's 2D in a way, but it is 3D. But I know that I'm not seeing a physical fridge that's life size. So
yeah, but it could still be smaller than life size
right.
and be 3D.
Exactly. So that's what I'm clarifying.
Yeah.
Is
like
like
it's
ignore
not,
what I
it's
said
not
about 3D. They're all 3D. It's just different
Yeah.
sizes.
Yep.
And the smaller ones feel less immersive, so kind of feels less 3D, but they are technically 3D.
Okay.
There is the thing of it not being a full scene, it's just the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember some other samples that were like just an object or whatever. Should we include that somehow?
And that's what I meant by no borders. Is
No
that
borders. But the immersive scenes also don't have borders, but it's different from my perspective.
You could say
You see,
no
like,
borders, just fridge.
Something more general like fragment, a fragment, or like partial, or
how about nothing
single
beyond?
focus.
How about nothing beyond it?
nothing beyond. Okay.
Does that do it for you?
Sounds good to me.
Or I would say just the object. It's just the fridge.
Yeah.
Just object.
It's just the object. This is very challenging. This
Yeah.
would be surely faster for me because there's less.
Mm.
It's hard for you, Kerry, because there's lots.
Your experience wasn't that easy to describe, either,
No.
at least for me.
So does this so right now what we're trying to do is to get words down onto paper, so to speak, that satisfies everybody that we're reawakening the right recollection of what's happening here. And what's happening here is that the refrigerator, she's seeing the refrigerator, that's all there is, there's nothing beyond that.
Does not block it.
For me, I'm happy.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I feel good.
Hmm. All right. So did we take care of? Well, we had a long conversation about beat up, but I think we've sort of solved that.
Yeah. We chatted.
Whoa. Is that all about the refrigerator?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Should have
I think-
seen our talks for Mel.
It would be me just going on a tangent.
That's so funny.
The primary issue, as I recall it, for people who can't remember this or didn't read it at the first time, was it the case that Kerry saw a beat-up refrigerator and then recognized it to be her childhood refrigerator? Or did she see her child refrigerator from the get-go and when asked to describe it could say, well, it's got scratches and it's sort of beat up on whatever.
I think we more agreed on the fridge, but it was about the yurt. And I put a yurt that you had previously been to, and Russ didn't think the previously been to was important enough to leave in there. And then
We'll get a chance to get there.
we got into it.
Oh my god.
So were we just doing sample 3? Is that
Yeah. Was that 3?
I think
was that
that's
3 or
Yes.
2?
I feel like we've only done 2 so far.
So let's find 9.3.
Yeah, I
So
feel like
9
we've done 3.
So
Yeah,
did we
because
do
there were
9?
two hinge ones, then the fridge.
Correct.
Yeah.
Did we do 9.2?
Did I just misnumber these?
Nine point two was Geneva, Lake Geneva.
We've done them all.
We've done them
Oh.
all. So now we're going to 9.
Okay. Yeah.
What are we doing next? 9.4? And all this is the reason that we have to go through this exercise is because that none of us have good memories. That's just that's.
But so this is why it's curious. I understand what you're saying, but I also think like I'd be better equipped to try and do this week by week, and then review it almost. You know, of like I feel like each session we do this is what I'm craving to do at the end of all the samples, and then I'd arguably want to revisit it as you go with the greater knowledge I have or something. Because right now I feel like really too far away from it all. That's just my personal experience.
From my perspective, when I did DS before doing it with Russ, I did this kind of thing much earlier. Like I would code, like do the inner seeing thing, like code the samples right after the interviews. And it wasn't a good idea. I was thinking too much about coding, and then the next day I would go in and my questionings were, I just wanted to get to the code, like is it a feeling, is it inner seeing? So from that perspective, I think it makes sense to put it at the end of the process. Like first just focus on really understanding Kerry's experience, and then at the very end just, you know.
That is a good rebuttal. You have changed your mind.
And I couldn't have said it any better. I think that is why it is. The risk is, I would have said it all of what Julian said, and I would have said the risk is always that you take forwards what you already think you know, and that's a bad risk. That's a confirmation bias. That's enacting confirmation bias, and I think confirmation bias is one of the biggest problems of life in general, probably, but the scientific method.
No, that makes perfect sense. I agree with you. You've convinced me.
Number 4. So we're going to agree that this is an inner seeing.
And also inner speaking.
This was the one that was behind me.
Yeah.
I would say C.
This was somewhat lower. I think in the original description I wrote somewhat lower opacity, but that didn't make it into the final description. But I wasn't entirely sure about the lower opacity.
Yeah, I didn't think it was lower opacity, which is probably why I didn't make it into the description.
Well, there you go.
I thought it was the opacity deal was a sort of a red herring. I think Kerry probably called it a lack of opacity when she didn't know what she was talking about. But when it turns out that she's got sort of several different seeings going on, all of which are opaque, but they take place in different realms or something like that.
Okay. Let's see that.
I think I might have in this instance said lower opacity because of it happening behind me, and so I was still like the phone was still like right in front of my face. So like I think that was just like a bad way of explaining it.
So seeing the phone was experiential.
Yeah.
I would say Seeing, or how would you say that?
So I'm not sure I tracked the discussion that we were just having.
We were talking about seeing the
seeing your
phone. So to put seeing in this description.
And is that about this?
Yeah.
Oh, she is seeing the phone?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's your surprisedly element here, because that was very relevant, because she was going, oh, I didn't realize they had any huts. Like, that was definitely that feeling, whatever that, however we're characterizing that, was present here for sure.
The kind of trying to place where it is, like, where was it?
Mm-hmm.
But not as a separate thought itself, I don't think, but as part of the scene.
Yeah, part of the seeing the phone.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to say surprisingly.
I don't know how to explain this, but I would actually say that the wonder or the surprisedly element was tied to the speaking.
Oh.
Inner speaking, sorry.
So you were saying that in a surprised tone? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I was kind of like, I forget the exact words, but it was like, I was just saying the name, but it was like Jenny Creek Arestua, like in a confused tone, because I just didn't realize that existed. Confusion might not be the right word.
I think if that's true, we didn't ask about it well enough.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be hard to conclude.
That's why we got the question marks there. So this is the discussion. We did have a long discussion about this. And have we resolved it? Part of the discussion had to do with the placement of the image. Part of it had to do with the mashing up.
Mm-hmm.
It was a mashing up, and Kerry does that. We're going to have some other mashups where she imports things and puts them into the scene as best she can.
Mm-hmm.
Is the pink circle my head?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not an artist.
There was an undertone of judgment.
I'm guessing she didn't like the way I characterized her nose. I think she probably objected to that.
Yeah, wait, so sorry, the mashup is in regards to that there were elements of this that are from a different, like...
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Okay.
You got a better way of saying it?
No, but I know what we're trying to say, and I'm not satisfied by how we're currently saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. I like recalled better than imported. Imported or like recalled is almost there. What am I?
I think technically both of these, like both elements of the scene are recalled, because I've seen Eldora and I've seen this year in Wyoming. And so those are two recalled memories put together. I don't know if that fits that definition, but...
What makes it somewhat interesting, and I think a characteristic of a couple of other samples, is that your interest is in Arestua, and you have imported, which is why I like the word imported, but I'm not wedded to that word. You've imported Wyoming scene as part of that. It doesn't fit there. It comes from somewhere else. Which is why we had this discussion about the Stukas somewhere.
The what?
from my
Because they're above.
2015 book. So in my black book, the one with Eric Fitzcable, the subject had a sample where she was reading about World War II, and she saw Stukas in some kind of a formation bombing something or whatever. And when we asked her what the characteristics of these were, what those Stukas actually looked like were modern jet fighters.
Mm.
But she didn't see them as modern jet fighters. She saw them as Stukas. In much the same way, I think, as you didn't see this as a yurt in Wyoming, you saw this as a hut in Eldora,
Mm-hmm.
even though its visual characteristics were somehow different.
Oh, okay, I get it.
Well, that's sort of what I was thinking. Like, is it not every time you have to visually imagine a scene, is it not always taken from a recalled, imported thing, Kerry? Like, I can't think of a time where it's just been a random thing that hasn't been linked back to a previous real-life scene.
Well, there's a full philosophical tradition about that. There are some philosophers who say that all imagery is that way, and it might very well be.
Yeah.
I don't have a position on that. What I think is that we're going to see, so this is going to be a question for Mel, whether we're going to see a bunch of other imagery from Kerry. I think there is a fair number of other imagery, and some of those are going to be specifically imported from some other place, and others are going to be created on the fly, no doubt spawned by, spurred by, informed by some other kinds of characteristics, but not as explicitly as here.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so I think when we're going to get there, we're going to say, well, this isn't like that yurt thing when we get there, I think.
Yes, because some things are very explicitly...
Right.
Yeah, I get you.
Kerry's no doubt making up everything from her experience. She wasn't born with yurts or whatever. Everything that she experiences, she has got to have somehow, it serves as the ingredients for what she has created. But that's not our job. That's the philosopher's job. So we good with number 4?
Me, yeah. Did we mention for the fridge that it was a childhood memory, that part of it, in our caption?
I don't think we did.
I think it could be interesting, because as you said, there might be a lot of these.
So I don't. If your question is, did we think that the fridge? I guess I should have searched for fridge.
It's 9.3.
Number 3. The fridge is not the same as the yurt. In my thinking about it, and the difference there is the same as a restua is not the same as the yurt. She was thinking about a restua and created an image of a restua, and while doing so, somehow imported something else to it. And about the fridge, she was thinking about the fridge and created an image of the fridge. Did not import anything else. So
Yeah.
the fridge is more like the seeing of a restua rather than the seeing of the yurt.
Yeah, I'm not thinking of it in terms of a mashup important thing, but in terms of a memory thing. I'm kind of also thinking about the flower crown thing. Maybe that's jumping ahead.
Okay.
Like there are maybe a lot of these things from memory, or like, and if that's something to include.
Yeah, but this is sort of the philosophical thing that I was saying. I don't think there are many that aren't directly linked to her memory. I mean, we'll find out as we go along.
I think we'll find out as we go along.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is to keep things alive here, keep possibilities alive, rather than answer questions.
I think for this one, memory, or at least it being your childhood fridge, Kerry, was important to the fridge. It wasn't
Yeah.
random Home Depot fridge.
So do we want to put resurrected from memory into here?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Kind of see your point, Mel, about the slippery slope of putting it in everywhere.
Well, we'll see.
See as we go.
Yeah, but I'll end up with no words on a page if I keep going like this, Julian.
So there's no 9.5. Does that mean that all we had was 4 samples?
Well, I think we spoke a lot about the yurt that day. I think we did do a lot less that day, yeah.
I was watching Real Housewives of Salt Lake City a few days
Yeah.
after, and they went to a yurt on a mountain.
Really?
Oh my god, it's a yurt.
Like an actual canvas wooden slat yurt?
Canvas yurt.
Oh my god,
slats.
that's
That's
rustic
a
for them.
weird sign. What does that mean, Julian? You've got to quit it all and move to a yurt.
I've never heard of mountain yurts before.
It's hilarious.
So we finished with day 9, and we're on to day 8.
Okay.
We ready to do that? We want to take a break? We're into this 55 minutes.
No, that's fine.
I'm good.
Okay.
Good, keep going.
This is crazy.
Which is crazy.
Just revisiting these experiences, because they're just so different to mine, so it's just fascinating. That's a cool one. I like this one.
This one, I don't remember if I said lower opacity, or not, but I just remember my focus was more on my actual physical reflection. Then, I don't know if you want to put like a greater than symbol or something, but it was like, I was really focused on like the texture of my hair, and then the pink tub was secondary.
Mm-hmm.
How do you describe the aspect of the, like, linked to that is realizing I should take a shower? Like, how do you categorize that bit?
We should explain the brackets, which means that something isn't directly experienced when you put it in brackets. So I guess the thinking was the realizing may be just entirely through this image, but there's not a separate realizing.
Yeah. Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like a clear realization or a clear thought, like, oh, I need to take a shower now. But the seeing the tub was almost like, oh, I'm about to see that because I'm about to shower, if that makes sense. Like, I'm about to step in.
So that is the sort of stuff that I have enjoyed, like, linking to this feeling of intuition or whatever lately, because I don't think you can dismiss that at all. I think that is an element of the inner experience there, of this, like, all of those things are then linked to this feeling, this intuition, this some sort of concept of I should take a shower. That's definitely present, if I think.
So if you want slippery slopes, I think that's going to be it, because I think I should take a shower. I got my hair messy by being on the run. I'd rather have a bath than a shower. I don't have time to take a bath. All those things contribute to the, I think. If they're not present, then it's hard for me to figure out why we should prefer the realizing I should take a shower to any of the rest of those things.
But I see your case, Mel, and I think I've argued similar things where Kerry has a mental image, and I think there's something of for something or realizing something that it's tied to, and then like with Russ we talk about it and we realize we can't definitively say that. but I see your point. It's like seeing a shower tub, and it might not be totally like just an image, just a visual. There might be something that's part of it, like seeing it is. Yeah, but then as I talk, I realize I'm not certain of that. So I think that's why we leave these things kind of in brackets.
In terms of like what I'm experiencing in this moment, I would say it's those two visuals, and underneath that is the realization that I need to take a shower, but I'm not directly experiencing that realization.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense?
Can you elaborate on that?
So I feel like through DES, what I've realized is a lot of time in my descriptions, I'll want to like place a meaning as to why I'm seeing something. So like I'm seeing the shower because I'm realizing, oh, I need to take a shower. But actually, if I like strip it back and just think about what I'm experiencing in this exact moment right before the beep went off, it is just those two visuals. I'm not consciously experiencing the thought or realization, I need to take a shower. What I'm experiencing in that moment is the physical visual of my hair and the lesser so dominant visual of my tub, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're like trying to contextualize it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. Okay.
Speculatively speaking, I think what makes it difficult for Mel is that Mel doesn't have that upper two layers there.
Yeah.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at. I just have that bottom layer, if anything. So that's what I'm trying to just get at.
Right.
But I accept yours.
And we had trouble enough with your bottom layer, Mel, trying to decide what was experienced and what was not experienced. Even when that was all there was. And here it's sort of a minor, experientially a minor thing.
Yep, I'm happy.
So what I put in here with SA visual, SA is my technical term for sensory awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And the greasy, messy chaos is seen, it seems to me, in the, I guess I could put a question mark in here, in the realm of I'm noticing the greasy, messy chaos as a sensory characteristic, not just as I need to wash my hair, or my hair is windblown, or whatever, but I'm noticing the characteristics of that. Sort of in the same way as the baby pink porcelain and the white curtain and the white and teal towers. That makes me think that what was present in the experience was something of the importance of the colors. This, I'm putting question marks up there on both of them because I'm not really sure. But it seems to me that Kerry was describing not just seeing her shower tub, but seeing the baby pink and white and teal of the shower tub.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the time I couldn't tell if I am placing an importance on color or if I just have a very visual brain, in the sense that I recall things with deep detail. I don't know. But the colors were definitely, like, I guess, important in that they defined the scene as my shower that I'm about to go into. I don't know.
For me, the hair is sensory awareness because you're really focused on it, on this greasy, messy chaos. But for me, the pink of the shower isn't here. Like it's all just detail that you could later explain because there was some detail to the image. But kind of like the fridge, you could say there was some rust, there was the handle, there was the texture. But I don't think here or with the fridge you were specifically focused on any one thing.
Yeah. Like I would say an instance where I was very focused on the color would be the menu edits, for example. When I was looking at the red text, that to me, that instance was color was really important. Whereas this, I feel like I was recalling the color.
Yeah, that's how I understood
just
this.
because.
So I'm not claiming omniscience here, but my impression was that the visual details of the fridge and the visual details of the shower were not in the same category. The colors, I thought, were more prominently as colors, and the scratches were just part of the refrigerator.
Oh.
Which is why I thought the colors were worthy of sensory awareness, question mark, question mark. And I added the third question mark for Julian.
Okay. Well, I would just add maybe one question mark to the first sensory awareness, because I think that's, like, to me, that's pretty sensory awareness.
What are the question marks representing in reference to the color?
Level of confusion.
level of confidence that this was a sense that the colors were present beyond just as being a portion of present to your experience, beyond merely being characteristics of the actual shower. The colors had more prominence than just being, well, this is the feature of my color, feature of my shower. And I took it as being possibly so, but I wasn't sure about it, and therefore I thought it deserved a couple of question marks.
Got it.
And I would notice as an aside here that the kinds of conversations that we are having here is part of the reason for having these discussions. That the object, everything from my point of view about descriptive experience sampling is iterative, and we're trying to build our skill at understanding how to proceed, not just with Kerry here, but for any future sampling that we might do. We're trying to call all these things into questions so that we can decide when do we have the right to make these kinds of slippery slope or not slippery slope, whatever. On to number 2.
Yeah.
Everybody happy with the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it mean? It's more elements of the green room rather than a fully realized scene. Oh, I hadn't actually seen this scene. Is that what you're saying?
My recollection is that you had said that I see a green room, and I see some things that you might expect to see in a green room, but it does not seem like I'm seeing a whole green room.
Yes. Yeah. That makes sense.
And so this is also an answer to your previous question, Mel. She had never been to. This is a scene that she does not imported or recollected or whatever. Obviously, she's been in some green room somewhere, and so she's capitalizing on what she knows about green rooms. But this is not a imported scene. I think.
Yeah. Yes. No, I agree, because she said that the podcasters have spoken about this green room before, so she knows the idea of it, but she doesn't have this clear imported visual scene because it's not from her real life or whatever, as per other real life examples she's imported into other scenes. Yeah, I get the difference, yeah.
So that portion of it is an inner seeing.
It's funny to me that I said it was 90-10.
So this is going to be the second portion.
Why is that, Kerry, are you feeling like now you would say that they were...
I would say it was still...
The difficult thing was not 90. That's too
Yeah.
much.
Obviously memory's not accurate. From what I remember, I'm wondering if I said 90-10 because this scene wasn't directly in front of me, like most of my visuals. Like
And,
that just
well-
seems like a big difference between the two percentages.
Well, and also I would wonder, just like hypothesizing here as I do, about this being something that's less detailed for you because it's not an
memory.
imported scene as we're talking about. I suspect that probably made you put less emphasis on it because it wasn't as clear as some other times. But that's all me guessing.
So I would say, taking a look at this portion that I'm now highlighting, we didn't believe you at the time when you said it was 90-10.
I guess we were surprised.
Yeah, I think I don't want to mess anything up by saying this, but I actually think that the reason why I said 90-10 is because this scene, or this weird version of a scene, was actually behind me, and because I remember like pushing the bike and seeing the bike in front of me, and the visual was behind me, and so I'm wondering if I just didn't have the language for that, and so it felt less dominant because it was behind me, but I also don't know if I'm just remembering it as being behind me, and maybe that wasn't accurate in the moment, but I don't believe myself when I said 90-10.
When you say behind you again,
Yeah.
can you just elaborate on what that means for you?
Yeah, so all of my, apart from the ones that are like the car example where that was like in real life at a certain angle based on real life, but most of my visuals, imagine a circle around my head, okay? It's like a plane around my head. And sometimes when I visualize a scene, it's literally like my full peripheral in front of me, like this. The yurt scene was over here, like back right. From memory, this was directly behind my head.
But as in, how is that experience for you in terms of like, are you like perspective-wise like a god-like figure looking down, seeing you in real life, and that's happening behind? Like, where's your perspective?
My perspective is still my normal perspective. Like,
You just know that
I
that
just
scene's
know it's
there.
behind me.
That's wild.
I know. I didn't. I also didn't realize this until doing this whole process.
So I'm suspecting that that's not actually true. I'm not calling Kerry a liar or whatever. But I think we established that the yurt scene was not just behind her, but was seen from behind that, looking forwards. The scene was behind her, and the seer of that scene was even farther behind her than that.
That's what I thought too. I thought you had like a godlike presence of like looking over that whole scene.
Not a
Yeah.
godlike presence. I thought it was a separate perspective.
Yeah.
There's a perspective here, and it's not like one perspective that sees all of these things. It's each one of those things has its own sort of perspective around it.
You are right. So like it's so hard to explain. I'm seeing the yurt scene as though I am looking at it, but
Yeah.
that visual is behind me.
That's the way I understood it
That
at the time.
perspective, it's like as if my eyes are over here. I'm viewing that scene.
And seeing your physical self in that scene as well.
Usually no.
I can't
it's
understand
it's
this.
really confusing.
I'm trying my best in terms of like, yeah, I get it. So you're seeing through like eyeball version of like as if your head was there. You're
Yeah.
seeing there.
I'm seeing the scene forward, but that view is behind me.
But you're not seeing you though. Like, how do you know it's
No.
behind you though if the you's not there?
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, fine. It's fine.
I'm not in it ever, usually. I don't think.
Got you.
But it's
So-
a physical impossibility, and you have to reshape your mind to be able to grasp these things that are physically, in real life, impossible.
Yeah.
Which is really hard.
The perspective taken is looking forwards.
Yes.
The scene, and part of the problem is that scene and scene are homophonically the same thing, but they're entirely different. The scene, the observed scene, the scene is behind her,
Yeah.
and so she's got a perspective looking forward on a scene which is behind her. So perspective taken is farther back than the scene seen. And I'm guessing that in this sample here, she didn't have the language perspective, the language understanding to do that.
Yeah,
And took the Yurt Mountain scene before we could actually figure that out.
Yeah. So like Mel, I'm physically here.
Yeah.
But the Yurt scene, for example, is as though I'm standing back here and seeing it forward, but I'm not in that scene. It's just a landscape scene. But that's only sometimes.
I'm still struggling with it, to be honest.
What's the struggle?
I don't understand the distinction. Like, I can accept that viewpoint there compared to there, but I don't understand how that is clear for you. Like, okay, wait, I need a better... So, like, let's go to the bloody Yurt again. So you were here looking at whatever you were looking at in the Yurt thing, what your phone, reading something, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that real life perspective is here.
Yeah.
And then you're saying there's the sort of imagined scene of viewing Yurtness this way. Are you trying to say that then, like, there's a distinction between, like, so then from here it's your, like, real, what you're actually seeing, and then the Yurtness isn't, like, coming into that peripheral, I suppose.
Yes.
That sort of it.
Yeah.
It's behind your
In that
peripheral.
instance, yeah.
So let me try to help you out from a different perspective. So right now, I presume you're looking at the computer screen,
Yes.
and you take the screen to be out in front of you.
Yeah.
Now let's set aside that whether that's true in reality or not, because there is no reality. There's only your perception.
Yeah.
So you, at this particular moment, are seeing the screen as being out in front of you. And you're not calculating that based on some physical characteristics of the screen, I think. Well, maybe you are, but from as far as your experience is concerned, you just experience the screen as being out there. And I think you experience this yourself as looking forwards at the screen, even though there's really nothing major in your experience that would lead you to do that, except other than, well, I experience myself as looking forward at the screen. Now imagine that you also experienced yourself as looking forwards at something which was behind you. Then you got, I think, Kerry's Yurt.
It's like you're experiencing two scenes concurrently.
Yeah.
And one is physically here and one is not, but that you're experiencing two scenes. Is that right?
Another way of almost like describing it, which might help, is when you sit down in a movie theater, right, there's multiple rows, you have your perspective forward, and then someone sitting behind you has you in that scene as well. That's a different, separate scene, because now you're included in that. Imagine that second person is just seeing the Yurt. So it's like two eyes facing forward.
And then not the actual movie theater scene from you onwards.
Yes. So it's two eyes facing forward.
Yeah.
This pair is seeing Yurt seen from this perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing my reality.
Yeah, so it's two concurrent scenes.
Yes.
And one's sort of, in a way, in front of the other, but they don't intercept ever.
Yeah.
So what's hard is to imagine, to recognize, to accept that there are two locuses of experience, loci of experience.
What's that word mean?
Places of perspective.
Yep.
She's got a place of perspective that's back behind her, seeing the Yurt, and she's got a perspective.
I'm okay with the two places of perspective, but I think that I get it and accept it now. I think what I was struggling with is two places of perspective I'm okay, but I can't imagine that the perspective in front of that one isn't in that one then. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need to accept them as two different scenes.
So you're thinking
I'm
one
wanting
back
to
to
see
here.
this perspective from there as well, you know,
Yeah.
like a
So-
matrix.
So Kerry movie theater is a good example. Let me see whether I can improve on that. See whether Kerry likes this better. So Kerry herself is sitting in the 5th row of the movie theater, seeing the screen, and behind her in the 6th row is a woman wearing a blonde wig, and in the 7th row there is somebody seeing the woman wearing a blonde wig. Kerry has the perspective of the movie and the perspective of the guy in the 7th row seeing the 6th row blonde person.
And in this case, the blonde person is the yurt scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that back person doesn't also see the movie screen, though.
That's correct.
Yeah. That's the bit that confuses the shit out of me, but I get it now in terms of like, so they see those backward things up until your original perspective. That's a different thing.
Yes.
Everything that you see is only a abstraction, even in the real world. You know, you're not right now. You're probably not seeing your computer. You're seeing me or Kerry or whoever you're interested in your computer or whatever. Computer's there, but you're not seeing it.
Very,
That's
very
very
interesting. Like, look at how hard this is for me to try and appreciate. Like, that's why it's so fucking fascinating, because I'm like, I can't. And you're like, yeah, this happens to me, like, quite a bit. It's crazy.
Before was
Cool.
going to be the movie theater with you looking at the movie on the big screen, and then a row behind you, somebody has a VR headset
Yes.
looking at a completely different scene, completely different
Yes,
movie.
that's a really good way of describing
Yeah, that's
it.
a nice distinction. I like that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm buying that.
Gee, that's crazy. That's okay. That's cool.
Except that the person behind her with the VR headset is also her.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to complicate it even more. Great. So I'd like to another day. Just have you seen the movie Inception? I feel like it would be a different experience for the two of us. You're like, yeah, this
Makes perfect sense.
interesting. Yeah, sorry, I derailed that for a bit, but I'm just trying to get it. That makes more sense to me now.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have the part of this experience about the coldness.
Or at least the doing, the pushing the bike,
Yeah.
the major part of it.
I remember the doing being like definitely a bigger part of my experience, but I don't know if it's 90%.
Yeah. But even if we can say it's mostly this, or at least that it's a big part, I think the percentages are also a tool to make you try to focus on what is mostly
Mhm.
clear.
Also, I wouldn't say actually the coldness is like as dominant as like the pushing of the bike over the frame was like the
Yeah, that's what Russ
done.
said too. He criticized that I focused too much on the coldness. I remember that.
My recollection is that the other way around. I thought it was more about the coldness.
That was definitely like
Uh,
part of it, but it's the pushing over the door frame. I think that's why I was more present in it, or I thought I was more present in it, because it was like a kind of difficult task, I guess.
Yeah, the pushing and trying not to hit your hands, I remember.
Yeah.
So I'm, without claiming an omniscient, perfect memory, which I clearly don't have, what I would say is it's more reasonable for Kerry at this moment to remember it as being a pushing of the bicycle, because that's what the task was. Whether at the moment it could have been her experience was entirely the coldness, but since that's incidental, now 2 weeks later, or a month later, whenever, when she's reconstructing, she would reconstruct the pushing, but not the coldness.
I also, and I think I sort of was at the time too, like somewhat skeptical about this whole thing, because I think Kerry was clutching for stuff because the inner seeing was lacking clarity for her compared to other ones. So I feel like she was grabbing at things, you know, trying to put greater emphasis on things than perhaps were there.
I agree with that.
Like, I think even at the time we all felt that when, well, like, was it the pushing of the bike or was it the coldness? Or was it, I think that was because she was destabilized by the visual imagery being less clear than usual or whatever, I
Right.
think.
I think that's fair.
I just took a little trip back to the transcript by the coldness. But yeah, Russ basically said my questioning was off there, so sorry. You can never know.
No, but I think it's relevant to all of this. Like, I think that just broadly speaking, this isn't one of the better beeps for a whole bunch of reasons. I think there's layers of confusion here that are not super helpful. I don't think it's a very trustworthy one.
You'll be right.
So my take on this, for better or for worse, is that the part of it that's about the visualization, I didn't have any questions about that. I thought she totally believably at the time, in my recollection from now, described what she saw, these two heads looking at each other, some details of the podcast, some strangeness about that. I'm seeing some things that you would find in a green room, but I don't see the whole green room. I thought that was all believably reported as if she had that part of her experience.
Mm-hmm.
The whole rest of the experience, I thought, was problematic.
Yeah, I agree.
And why it was problematic, I don't think we knew at the time. Probably still don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything we want to add or subtract from the green?
Coldness, sensory awareness, I see. No, I think that's fine.
All good.
Can we somehow encapsulate the trying not to jam hands? Pushing. No. Pushing not to hands.
I just don't believe it, though. Like, I just don't. I think it's wasted semantics.
Right. I'm satisfied with the trying.
With the
It's a difficult kind of a thing because we have to accept that Kerry at the time didn't know, still probably doesn't know, what she was doing. And none of us know what we're doing either. And so we're trying to do the best we can, trying to sort that out. She's got a couple of beeps so far that involve some kind of trying, whether that's a statement of context that she takes to be as experience, or whether it's actually a portion of the experience. I don't think we knew. Kerry doesn't know. And so when we get to the end, we're going to want to try to be honest about that. And not make more of it than it was, and not make less of it than it was. On to 3?
Yeah, can I just pause for 1 second to reply to my editor on my phone? I'll just be 1 second.
Yeah, why don't we take a 5-minute break, actually?
That would be very helpful.
Let people do whatever.
I go make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So I'll keep the recording running. Maybe edit it out later.
Okay.
He's fine. All right, let's continue.
We can read your mind, and so we're gonna wind to number 3 here, and I would note in passing how difficult this is, and how profitable it is. I mean, really, every conversation that we have is honing our skills, I think, towards understanding the different realms of experience. And Mel, you're still muted if that was purposeful.
No, I just do it because the train goes past quite frequently. It's loud. Okay.
don't know if this matters, but it was actually a voice note over text, not a voicemail. Not sure if that matters at all.
Text voice note.
Yeah.
Good to change.
So what was it actually?
I've ever left like an audio message over text message. It's if you hit the audio button, it's like a walkie-talkie. You can record your voice. It's not like I made a phone call and called her. I just sent her a text, but it was an auditory text. So it's a voice note or a voiceover.
Voiceover note text. Or like a text to someone.
Yeah.
Open to include. Text. Gotta keep track and make sure that any updates here we put in the. Or Russ, do you go for the final web versions based off of this document?
I do.
Okay.
In my world, actually, I would have all the documents would have been in the same document. I just keep on building.
Yeah.
And part of that is that I sometimes want to refer back, and it's easier to refer back within the same document.
And just search for it.
And part of it is that then there's always just one document.
Okay. So we'll go off this one.
So what you were hearing was your voice message? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So
it wasn't really a conversation. It was a message that had been left.
correct.
So this is not correct.
Wait. It was a conversation, but I'm hearing myself. Well, I mean, I guess it's what you consider. What do you consider a conversation? Like Nora and I had a conversation, and then I recorded a voice note over text. Actually, I can't. I'm having a hard time remembering this one. Let me just reread this.
I wish we had a bit more context, actually. Even if we just had it in the brackets, like what it was about.
Oh yeah, okay, I do remember this. I had a phone call with Nora, and then very shortly thereafter, I recorded the voice note. And I was hearing, like, I think what I was hearing was my side of the conversation.
So let me tell you what I understood. And this is exactly why I don't think Kerry should be credited as being infallible. I don't think she is, just as anybody else is. My understanding was that she'd had a conversation with Nora, and she's now replaying that conversation. She's not replaying a text message about it. She's replaying that conversation about it and hearing only her side. That's how I understood it at the time.
I understood it as replaying like a voice text she had sent. It was a conversation by Emily. But then why did we have it was a conversation?
Because it was a conversation. If it was just a text, we wouldn't have said it was a conversation. We would have said, and we wouldn't have said, I'm hearing only my side of the conversation. We would be saying, I've sent a text and I'm hearing the text.
I think it might be, for this one, it might be worth going back to the actual recording. Because I can't quite remember if I was replaying my side of the phone conversation or if I was replaying my voice note.
So is the transcript going to be good enough, or do you want to hear the...
Oh, I don't mind. I just think I mean, if you're going to put this on the website, maybe you might want to answer as to what I was replaying in my head, but I think the transcript is fine.
So this is the transcript, but I got to change the...
Do you remember what like the it is you were talking about when you say you were the last person I spoke to about it and I just had to tell someone?
I think I was telling her I was lamenting boy problems.
Sorry, I'm getting a call. I gotta take this.
Okay, we'll track down this. We'll take this opportunity to track it down. So now I'm going to share. So why can't I share that?
Sounds pretty clear.
All right, see what I do. That's what I do. All right. So. So now can you all see, you should be able to see the interview 8?
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking for 8.4, is that what we're trying to talk about?
8.3. It's like 34 minutes in, 32 minutes in.
Oh, so it wasn't a voicemail at all.
Wasn't a voicemail at all.
I called her twice, and I was replaying my side of the conversation the second time. That's what it was.
Yeah. So the moral to that story from the standpoint of technique, or standpoint of recollection, is that your recollection is not to be trusted.
Yeah.
And this is by no means a criticism of Kerry. This is the way the world is. People's recollections are not really recollections. They are creations from the present with a backwards sense to them.
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. And that's why the whole method is designed to take that seriously without being critical about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I vaguely remember calling and then leaving another voice note after to add something. But yeah, not sure.
I think I actually, Julian, I think I did that in another one.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Like, I think this is, and that's what I was confusing.
Okay.
I don't think it's in this one.
Okay.
Text doesn't do us any good either. So I think there just wasn't anything of the text to it.
Yep. Yeah. I think there's a separate one where I'm talking about a voice note, because I do remember one of them. I think I heard my voice as though it was recorded. Like, I heard the voice note version of my voice, but that's not this instance.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. This is just the call.
All right, so have we seen enough of the transcript?
Yeah.
So I will take us back to not the transcript. I don't really care about the transcript anymore. So now I'm going to repair this.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to just undo it. So.
But it still wasn't a voicemail, it was 2 phone calls.
So we should change the purple text at the top. I'm playing in my head a phone call left.
Yeah. a phone call I made last night to my friend Nora soon after calling her. Because, yeah, I called her twice, which is why I felt annoying.
Oh. Okay.
So was this the original purple?
That's the original.
Yeah, this is the original purple. Came from here. So we're deciding that isn't really true. We're deciding it. I'm replaying a phone call. So now I'm going to go back and see whether I can. Well, we just searched for voice and didn't find anything of interest. So it must be just a mistake.
Mm.
In the transcript, does it say voicemail?
We searched
No.
for voice in the transcript and didn't find it.
Yeah, because I don't leave voice. I haven't left a voicemail since like 2010. So.
The transcript does not have voicemail in it,
Okay.
and it doesn't have voicemail with a space in between it, and it doesn't have voice hyphen mail. Doesn't have any of those things in it.
Mm-hmm.
So where the voicemail came from, I think it was a mistake.
Mistake.
So
I don't know if the wording is clear. I'm replaying in my head a phone call last night to my friend Nora soon after calling her. I don't know if it's clear that I've called her twice.
Okay. But here would you say you're replaying just one of those calls?
Yeah, just the second one.
Well, you could add some context after calling her twice about
Yeah.
boy troubles. I think that would be good to include just the.
And I was just going back and looking at the transcript it says, and that corresponds with what the transcript says.
So I'm replaying in my head a phone call last night to my friend Nora. I had called her twice in a row, and I was trying to discern if it was annoying or something.
Like that.
I would put what it's about twice in a row, talking about boy problems, dating problems.
Mm-hmm.
Just because when we later say, you were the last person I spoke to about it, like I want to know what it is. Like to me that.
I think it was like a specific situation with a specific person.
Yeah.
So she had context of that situation.
I'm going to look at the transcripts anyways. I want to go through them all
Okay.
in the next few weeks. So if I see something to include, I'll include it.
So why do you want to know what it is?
Well, because when Kerry's talking about it, saying like the last person I spoke to about it, like it, for her has some meaning, like it's about something, even if that's not like direct, even if here it's just the inner hearing, for me that context does add to understanding the experience.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out is whether that's really true or whether that's a mistake on your part. So let's say it was Nora broke up with her boyfriend. Or let's say it was...
Oh, and actually, go on, Russ. But Mel's recording stopped and she has to refresh, so when she's off the phone, remind me to...
Okay.
But okay, you were saying about the it.
So it could be there's a boyfriend issue, which is what you sort of took it to be, but it might be something else. Or maybe it was a political issue that Nora had framed support of Trump, and Kerry's checking that out. Call her back about that. How the hell could you do that? Or whatever. And so the question is, does it matter from the understanding of the characteristics of Kerry's experience, whether you know what it is, or whether that's it seems like it adds to the understanding, but it really doesn't. That's the issue, basically.
Because it could be just like really more just about the words, but it could be about the words. They have some, there's some meaning there. They're not just random words.
Well, it's definitely not about the words. She didn't call her up. I'm accepting she didn't call her friend up to say, maybe I said X and I should have said X plus 1 or whatever. Yeah. The problem is that the addition of detail makes things seem more reasonable than they are, I think. Steven Pinker refers back to the problem studies. I think the studies were originally by Kahneman and Tversky or whatever. But if you say, what's the probability that the Assad regime would be overthrown, or what's the probability that and so you're asked to give a number based on that probability, and then you're also you got a list of probabilities that you're estimating, and then the other one, what's the probability that the Assad regime would be overthrown, given that you understand that the Turks and I don't know anything about the situation, but the Turks and the Egyptians have been arguing back and forth over the last whatever. And the probability estimates are always more for the second one than for the first one, even though they logically have to be less, because the more narrowly defined something, the lower its probability is going to be.
Oh, I'll
But
drop Sorry.
No, we lost it. Oh. I'm just back.
So the point is that the more details that you have, the more things seem real, but they're not. The more you're likely to mistake things for real when it's a mistake.
The more you're gonna think.
I understand
That has to be part of this experience. Board trouble.
Right. Right.
For me, well, it depends if we even got what it is, and then if we I can find that in the transcript. Maybe we can have this argument again. But if we can find it, then I would like to include it. It would just be something where, if I read it, I can understand it. Well,
You can think you understand.
I can think I understand, but yeah, that's what I said. We could have this argument, but it might not even be there. In which case,
I think it's not.
I think it's intentionally vague.
What?
I think I was intentionally vague about the context of what it was because it had to do with my personal dating life. So.
But then we got some Hinge samples later. So. Well, in terms of the caption, in your hearing,
So is Mel back, we think? Probably not. Maybe we should just press on and do the caption here. And
her recording is started again. Cause
she looks like she's typing. Looks like she's typing and not paying attention to us.
Let's go on for now, I guess. In your hearing?
So I guess we started out by saying this is in your hearing.
I think that's kind of it. Yeah.
And did we presume that that you did not hear the other side of the conversation? I forget whether we had established that.
No, I specifically said I was only replaying what I had said.
Part that you had said.
At least at this very moment.
Well, the difference there is whether it's at this particular moment I was hearing my side, but a moment earlier I would have been hearing what she said, or I was just hearing my side. My guess is that we tried to make that clear, and
I'm pretty confident that it was just what I was saying.
but you know that I'm not going to believe you. So
I know. You can read the transcript.
I can read the transcript. That is what makes this an interesting art.
But isn't DES only concerned about the moment anyway? Doesn't more detail just make you think you know?
No. In this particular case, it's an entirely different deal. If Kerry's experience was at the moment of the beep, I am replaying my side of a conversation. Or her experience was, I'm replaying a conversation, and at the moment of the beep, it happened to be my side that I was hearing. Those would be two very different experiences from my point of view.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back in the transcript again and see?
This is also something, I'm supposed to do a deep dive on these in the next few weeks because I haven't done anything with these. So I can make a note to myself. Make a little bit of note. 8.3. .3 just Kerry's side.
So what I would say about all that is, since in the original conversations I wrote, this is me, I think. Yeah, this is me saying, I'm only hearing my side. For me, that is, I wouldn't have allowed myself, I don't think I would have allowed myself to write that if the actual experience, if I had understood the experience to be, I'm paying attention to a conversation and it's Kerry talking, and then Nora, and then Kerry, and then Nora, and then Kerry, and the beep happens to be on Kerry, I wouldn't have allowed myself to write that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think. Now, it might not have been clear in the interview, or B, I might have misunderstood what was going on in the interview. Either one of those things is possible. But I don't think it's possible that I would have understood it to be a conversation back and forth, and the beep happens at Kerry speaking. Because that's a distinction that that's a meaningful distinction to me, and I wouldn't have allowed myself to write that.
Mm-hmm.
I found in the transcript, Kerry, you saying, I was not replaying her end of it. I couldn't hear her voice. I was replaying everything I had said at the start of the phone call, and then up until this line. So basically, it's more about seeing what you said and if it was annoying. So.
Right. So that's how I would have understood this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now in corresponds with that.
Yep.
I'm just thinking out loud here, but the trying to discern whether it was annoying, well, that we left as context. Just in here. But yeah, that gets tricky with some other samples where we made the trying a bit more prominent. But yeah, I would just leave that.
So what I'm doing in this green thing here is I'm honoring the fact that we have this as an issue. We've had some beeps with context, with trying. We wondered whether there was context or whether it was extreme.
Mm-hmm.
So take a note of that.
What do you guys think? Is like a just in your hearing different from inner hearing 4 to see if it's annoying, or is that really just background?
Again, this is memory, but I don't think I would have been replaying this conversation if I was not concerned about being annoying. Does that make sense? Like, so I don't know if that makes it context, but I just don't think that this moment would have happened if I didn't have an underlying worry of coming off annoying to my friend.
But I think
That doesn't make it experience, though.
Yeah, that
That's
doesn't
the
make.
problem.
Yeah.
So, okay, so maybe context then.
So, for example, you wouldn't have had this conversation if you didn't have a heartbeat. That doesn't mean that. That doesn't mean that the heartbeat was experienced.
I've been eavesdropping as I was replying to some messages, and that was very funny. Wouldn't have had this conversation if you didn't have a heartbeat. Touche.
Okay, well, I don't know if that's, so then maybe that's
That
context.
so that's the we're honoring that. We don't know whether trying. That's what the angle brackets are. We don't know whether the trying should be considered part of experience or not. Doesn't seem like it's. I'm not directly thinking about my trying. That would be like a metacognition kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But in trying, I am replaying this conversation. That would
Yeah.
be sort of fair.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay, I'm happy leaving it like that.
Okay. And then, so we want to bring. Do we have anything to bring Mel up to date with?
Yeah, what did I miss? Sorry. Could you see me pacing around the room?
I think, I mean, we
Oh,
finalized.
I do remember what we had.
Yeah.
When you left, we had said this was a mistake. We
Yeah.
had said there was a mistake. It was voice text.
Yes.
That turned out to be a confabulation of Kerry's, based in this interview. It was not a text. It was a phone call. She was replaying a phone call.
Not just of Kerry's. I think in my original description, I think I had it wrongly as a voicemail.
Yeah,
And then
that might have confused her.
Yeah, that compounded, and then Kerry, I thought it was a voice text. I think I was. Yeah, sometimes the descriptions I write just fast right after, and sometimes they take more time. Maybe these I wrote faster and just confused it with the voice text one a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so maybe we were both confused by this voice text sample.
I wasn't meaning to cast any blame on anybody, actually, but just to recognize that recollections are not to be trusted. That's
Kerry was like, I'm a millennial. I'm not leaving voicemails.
Yeah.
That's exactly what she said.
I was like, I haven't left a voicemail since 2010. There's no way that's correct.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And then we talked about if it was a conversation with the back and forth, or if it was just Kerry playing just her side of it.
And it was just her side, right?
Yeah, it was more just her side.
Yeah, I feel like I remember that. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Number 4.
The menu, your favorite menu.
Did you just see my general disposition? Just like
Yes.
such a frustrating day.
Did they like the menu in the end?
They did, and then they completely changed it, and I had to redo it again for the third time.
Oh my God. Okay, let's read this.
Charged by the hour, baby.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I can do that, but you're just paying me. You're lighting money on fire.
Mm-hmm. I have like a seeing with sensory awareness and a feeling,
Yeah.
although yeah.
And I'm going to put a bunch of question marks on it because I never was convinced about it. I thought I was convinced for a while. The question is whether the red of the seeing came to Kerry as a redness or came to Kerry as a edit to be made.
Okay.
And I went back and forth in my understanding. I think I never could figure it out at the end. My recollection is I never could figure it out.
Can the two things not be intrinsically linked?
They could be, yeah.
It definitely was red, and she was seeing it as red, but I guess the question is she focusing on the redness? Is there something like, special about this redness, or is it more just not?
So the deal is here that it's similar. So when you're seeing a track change, do we see this as a track change, or do we see this as red text? Clearly it's red text. But whether it's the redness that we see or whether it's, well, I'm just sorting through the track changiness of it. That's the issue that's involved here.
Touche.
And I never could figure that out about this sample for Kerry. I thought for a while, my recollection is I thought for a while thinking it was about the redness.
In the screen meeting, Kerry, you brought this up, right? We were talking about the pinkness of the bathroom tiles.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't was it you who brought up like the redness of this sample?
Yeah, this is what I was referring to.
So, I mean, memories can change, but I would put that as like some evidence that redness was important.
I can buy that.
We got a question mark today.
Back away from two question marks to one question mark. Because we weren't sure about the sensory awareness of the pink either. So,
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I think we're going to say something like, well, we can't really determine about, there's some issues. We're going to try to figure that out somewhere down the line. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. So everybody understand what this...
I was just about to ask, can you just re-explain, like, sensory awareness?
Sensory awareness, pure sensory and textbook sensory awareness from my point of view is I'm interested in something for its sensory features. So on this page here, I'm looking at the yellow because I'm attracted to the yellow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care that the yellow has some red equals unchangedness to it. It's just the yellow draws me. That would be pure sensory awareness.
Yep.
Now, if I'm interested in, well, what does he mean by red equals unchanged? And I'm drawn to the red equals unchanged because it's highlighted in yellow. Then my interest would not be in the yellow. It would be in the red equals unchanged, and the yellowness would be, that's the context that drew me to that.
I think both are present in this particular example. Like, both are relevant.
Yeah. Because I was definitely scanning the document to, like... So I wasn't reading it, I was scanning it looking for red. But that red also had meaning to me of how have they not made these edits, and is there something that I did wrong to make that happen? Which, side note, no, they were just unprepared. But the red did have meaning to me.
If it has meaning to you like you just described it, then I would not call it sensory awareness. I would call that as...
What do you call that?
I don't have a name for that.
Yeah,
sensory
like
meaning.
the quote, wait, negative reaction was not articulated or differentiated, but may have been something like, oh no, still there, did I do something wrong here? Like, that's kind of what I think I was feeling in this moment.
Yeah, so how do you characterize all of that?
That is a feeling. Which I call bodily in this, from the standpoint that it included.
But there's also an unbodily aspect to it.
Yep. Well, let me ask you this. What do you mean there's an unbodily aspect to it?
The like, she's scanning for that particular text and feeling the like, oh no, have I done something wrong here? Like looking for the changes, feeling whatever that is, that like, oh, what's happened here? But that doesn't necessarily. I think if there's that and a physical component of that, but I think there's two elements of it. Do you not?
First off, let me say I think feelings are hard. They're hard all the way down. It sometimes happens. I don't recall whether it happens with Kerry, but it frequently happens that feelings have no bodily aspect at all. I think it does happen with Kerry. I think we're going to get to some examples of that, where she said, I felt angry or whatever, but I didn't feel angry. There was no bodily aspect to that. I feel it, but it's not bodily. That I would call mental, for lack of a better term. And by mental, I just mean not bodily. And by bodily, I mean including bodily, but I don't mean
Just
excluding anything. I don't mean just bodily, because I'm not sure. Well, I think there are sometimes bodily sensations. So sometimes people would say, I felt my stomach drop. And you say, and you interview it carefully as best you can. So does this feel like an emotional thing, like I'm feeling unhappy about this whole kind of thing, or just I feel my stomach drop? And they would say, I just feel my stomach drop. Then you got a bodily sensation that might be connected to some feeling, but you don't have any experience of it.
Yeah, true, but it would be more rare, I presume, that way than the opposite way of like, if there is a bodily aspect present, then more often than not, the mental aspect is present.
But in this instance, didn't I say like my stomach sank? Yes.
Yeah, we're acknowledging you've got bodily here for sure.
Yeah.
So that if your question, Mel, is it possible to have a bodily feeling and not have a mental feeling? The answer to that is I don't know. Except I probably wouldn't call it a feeling. I could have a bodily sensation.
Yeah. So then if we're describing something as
a feeling, then it has to have been somehow grokked as a feeling, somehow apprehended as a feeling.
The mental, like that's a given if we're using that descriptor.
Right.
But it's not a very satisfactory one, is it? But that's the limit on all of that.
Right.
But yes, I'm happy to agree with that. Yeah.
In the caption, do we want to acknowledge the innerly sing-songy speaking PT bar menu?
With some question marks from the maybe.
And so wait, was that sing-songy experienced as you speaking that, or you hearing that? Okay.
I think speaking from memory, but you might want to double check that.
Yeah, it says speaking down there.
Oh, yeah, speaking.
Onward?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was 4.
Mm-hmm.
I find the feeling stuff so interesting because it's so hard to describe.
Yeah.
It is. And I've been working at it for 50-ish years or something, and I don't think I'm as much better at it than what I just said. It's just hard. And I used to think it was my problem, but now I think it's just that it's hard.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just like a wildly impossible task, but it's a particularly fascinating one to me, I think, because I suspect, without having done all the work that you have done, Russ, though, but I feel like as a society we can all agree that like we all tend to experience what we're describing there as those feelings, but no one can seem to really articulate them very well at all.
Well, I'm 100% sure that some people experience things that include bodily aspects. Some people experience feelings that include bodily aspects, and some people experience feelings that do not include bodily aspects. And those feelings are every bit as felt, and every bit as rich, and every bit as gripping, and important, and whatever. And yet some include a bodily aspect and some don't.
Well, that's the problem. When they don't include the bodily aspect, it's very hard to try and express that or articulate what that experience is. Because the bodily is easy to grab at, but the other bit is really challenging if that's not there.
I think I would disagree with that, but I think they're pretty much equally easy or difficult. So I think people can say, I was somewhere between angry and irritated, and it was closer to angry than it was to irritated, and that can be with bodily aspects and without bodily aspects. I mean, people can have shades of feelings, and the bodily aspect does not help or hurt, not help or hinder in the description of it. I think. But I also think that the emotion literature doesn't help you out very much, because the emotion literature doesn't even know the difference between a mental feeling and a bodily feeling, largely.
Oh, this is just a whole lot of print chat, isn't it?
Print.
Seeing, speaking.
Seemed pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah.
Are you happy with that?
Yeah.
For this. Seeing face. Feeling. Wait.
So the question is whether we should call this stuff feeling.
Yeah, I like that as feeling. I think that is a feeling.
And this would be a good answer to the question that you had 2 minutes ago, Mel, which is basically, can you have a differentiated feeling without it being in the body? And the answer to that is, well, this is pretty differentiated, but not bodily.
And I think it is. I think that what she's described there is a complicated sensation that is some sort of amalgamation of feeling, and that's about as good as you can describe.
Right, I agree. We happy with this?
I am.
So that is 2 days, 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Jesus.
So do we want to press on, or do we want to say that's enough for today, or?
Let me check my work.
I could keep going if everyone else is down. It's only 11:20.
Oh my god, true, yeah. How are you feeling? It's late for you.
Nah, it's okay. It's Friday. I'll be up all night.
Kerry, how are you? You're on mute, for starters.
Oh my god. I'm good. I don't think you guys heard me say this. I'm gonna eat a power bar, but then I'm good.
Power bar would be a good
I'm gonna
idea.
grab a power bar. I'll be right back. Unless you guys want to wrap up.
Let's take a 1 minute power bar break.
Let's take a quick power bar break, I'll reply, and then I think let's do one more day.
Yeah.
Okay, good idea.
All I had in the house was not a power bar, it's chocolate chip biscotti, so... Thanks.
I had a zone bar.
Okay.
Christmas cookie.
Delicious, look at us. Alright. Turn this off while I...
This is more a 2D thing, but because it's a screen.
This is more what?
On the 2D, 3D discussion, this is more 2D, but because it's a like 2D
The squares?
object.
It's a
I don't know
2D
if I would,
thing, yeah.
yeah, I don't know if I would necessarily call it 2D because,
So I wouldn't call it 2D
yeah.
unless Kerry said there was something about this which was flatter than usual.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of times when we have a 3D seeing of something that is 2D, which is a realistic seeing, which I took this.
Yeah. I mean, if looking at our squares right now is considered 2D,
Right, which I wouldn't.
yeah, then it's not.
What I call skillful clarity, what I mean by that is that she has made things clear that she wants to make clear and has made other things unclear which she wants to make unclear for some good reason. I don't have to know what that reason is, but it's just not accidental gradations of clarity. So what that really means is that I took what Kerry was saying about her imagery as being I am seeing zoom boxes. These zoom boxes have to happen to have Doug and Bevan in them, but that's not the important part of it. The important part was the zoom boxes themselves, so I made them clear, and I made Doug and Bevan not clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I take that as being skillful clarity. She is skillfully conveying to herself, I'm not really interested in what's in these boxes. I'm interested in the box.
Does it mean that I'm interested in what's in the box if the speaking is what I would be saying to them. Like, does that, even though Doug and Bevan aren't clear, does the fact that I'm speaking to them in my head place more emphasis on who's in the box, or do you not think so?
Well, I think that's in the context thing for me. That's in the context arena.
Okay.
Well, in the process or the action, the inner experience action, what I think is, for some reason, Kerry is making a distinction, a clarity distinction. What that reason is usually beyond me.
Yeah, I would call that like selective focus or something like that. Like she's decided what she's focused on. I like your version better, but as in that's like for me helps me understand of like, yeah, she's focused on that. But skillful clarity is a far more eloquent way to say it. Do I get it?
We put this in the just the thing, but not a whole scene. You say that about this? It's just the zoom boxes, just but it's not like full scene with the zoom boxes and
Oh yeah, like the fridge.
Yeah,
This would be like the fridge. Are we marking that down? Like, are we writing down like scene versus object?
I don't think we've been entirely consistent.
What did we call it? Nothing beyond?
Yeah.
Nothing beyond, yeah. And then I think we also said not blocking.
Is that what we said?
Because that was a discussion around the transparency, because this wasn't, oh, maybe not.
It wasn't not blocking.
Or not,
What was that sample?
that was,
Not obscuring.
I think, the fridge.
Does not
Does not
block. That good?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds easy.
Sorry, guys, these thoughts aren't very exciting.
Pretty straightforward. Most people's thoughts are not very exciting.
Mine even more.
And I should say as judged by themselves, because what makes them interesting from our point of view is the sorting through the characteristics of them. The content is of less importance.
I like the content when you're talking about hinge dates.
When Julian was like, well, what's it? And I'm like, my relationship problems? Innerly, seeing, innerly speaking. Do we want to comment on the potential emotion of relief?
Yeah, I was going to say I argue a bit of feeling here.
think we asked about it, and there wasn't like a direct view.
So here's the distinction. The distinction is whether Kerry experienced feeling relief versus Kerry is saying, okay, not that bad, in a way that embodies relief.
Gosh, that's a nice way to sum that up. I know exactly what you mean. True, that is the distinction to make.
And because I've been down this road a few times, what this way of writing for me means I didn't believe that she had a separate feeling, that she had a... If I had thought in the interview that she had a feeling, then I would have said that.
Yeah, well, based on the way you just described the two sort of options, I completely agree with you. Wouldn't characterize feeling now.
Kerry is capable of feeling.
Yes.
And she's capable of acting in a way that is emotional, that does not involve the direct apprehension of a feeling. And that's what I took this to be.
Yeah, I get it. I agree.
Onward. Which, by the way, I'm not sure that the emotion literature understands fully. You just about have to have samples where something like this is an issue, and the emotion literature doesn't carefully get enough sample.
Well, yeah, because it's such a fine distinction. But that's why I was genuinely so floored by the way you just described it, because you're like, yes, exactly. That is a fine but very important distinction. I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're speaking.
Is that it?
Yeah, because it was almost just when you're speaking.
I think that's it. I think going down we could ask. The realizing is sort of in the same category as trying.
Yeah.
She was saying cheek in the effort of trying to do something, but I think it's just hard, slippery. So we're happy with just this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, this day feels like more chill than at some of your other days. There's less going on.
But it was an annoying day because it was just me doing these menus. Oh my god, the golden retriever!
One of the famous beeps.
I like the song too.
No, same. Now it's going to be stuck in my head forever.
Yeah. I can't remember how we're marking down like memories, like visuals created from memory, but this one I think is part memory with the flower crown, but then the golden retriever is not from memory.
Excavated.
So where the heck was...
9.4, I believe.
Imported recalled scene. What are we doing now? 7.4?
7 point, yeah. Air 5.
And it is a good example of the conversation that we had earlier about imported scenes and scenes that are created from her experience. She knows about golden retrievers or whatever and makes a view of a golden retriever, but not a particular golden retriever, probably.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I also wanted to see if I got all the colors right. Freaking nailed it.
Oh, yeah.
Red, green, yellow, blue. There's a purple one that I forgot. But
I'm never going to forget your yurts. I'm never going to forget your golden retriever. Like, they're just a couple of standout beeps.
It's somewhat smaller. We had a small mention before.
mm.
Yeah, that feels good.
Is this the, well, it might be a nothing beyond, but we weren't clear in the sample. Maybe not in the interview, so I would give it out, I guess.
Wait for the what, sorry?
If it's a nothing beyond, like if it's
Oh.
just the dog, or if it's the dog in a clean.
I thought it was just the dog in the flower crown.
Yeah.
Like really specifically, sharply that. That's just based off my memory.
Yeah, that's what I think too, but I'm not
Yeah.
really confident. I'm gonna make a note on things to notice the things like that. It was very detailed, like the leathery lips. Is any of it enough to reach sensory awareness, Russ, you think? Or is it more just a lot of detail? Mm.
So sensory awareness never occurred to me in this description, let's put it that way. At least not, I wondered about it in the crown, whether that was a sensory awareness thing of color, but decided against it.
Okay.
So the sensory awareness, from my point of view, is not just a matter of detail. It's a matter of, I'm interested in this aspect for its own sake, not for any instrumental reason.
Yeah.
And this didn't seem like that. This was, I'm creating a happy golden retriever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I gotta run for a charger and take about a minute.
My understanding, by the way, when you showed the picture, when you sent the picture,
Mm-hmm.
it was surprisingly bright to me. The picture was brighter than I had understood it in the interview, which I take to be, when I decided that it wasn't sensory awareness, I downplayed the colors.
That's interesting.
And
I would say the brightness matched what I had it imagined. But I didn't do the sensory awareness piece, obviously, so I reckon that's so relevant.
well, what I think that means is that I distort the reality too. I mean, everybody distorts things for their own reasons or whatever.
Wait, Russ, are
So
you
I'm-
saying you're not perfect and you don't get everything right?
Well, this was the exception that proves the
time.
rule.
Okay.
The whole method, I think, could be said to be trying to compensate for my own imperfections. You could probably say that. Accepting of my own
Imperfections.
And what do you do about that if you want to say something about inner experience? Well, this is what you have to do, given that I and probably a lot of other people screw things up.
Would you say you have a perfectionism complex, Russ?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I do like to understand things.
Yes. Okay.
I'm surprised we said that it's not in rehearsal.
Originally, I wrote that it was in rehearsal. But I think the distinction is that it's kind of preparation for rehearsal. It's not like you're directly. It's not like you're imagining yourself speaking to this person.
Yeah.
But you're saying something as preparation for speaking. I think that we could clarify the written description. I think it's convoluted, but I think we can work on that.
So what I took this to mean, this aspect here, what I took that to mean is Kerry's intention as felt in the speaking was just of saying this, but not of running through alternatives. I could say this, I could say that, I could say this other thing. And therefore it didn't seem like it was, and not even saying this and then saying it again and then saying it again, practicing what she might say, but just something that she could say.
I found in the transcript too, you're practicing saying it, but not saying it to that guy. So I think that's also a distinction you wanted. Like, in your imagined rehearsal, there's not that guy yet. It's not you're saying it to this guy.
Oh, okay. I think I wanted to say this to the client is kind of what I think confused on the distinction. Obviously I'm not like rehearsing with someone specific in mind or rehearsing the tone or wording, but I do think I intended.
Yeah, but I think that can be context, but that not necessarily be part of your experience at that point.
Yeah.
Which I think what Julian's getting at, of like it's the step before it's that. So I think that's context that we all know and agree on. But I don't think you were at that point when you were doing this.
Like maybe we could compare it to the phone call to a friend where you're replaying your part of a conversation. Actually, I don't know how helpful this was because it was definitely more about your part.
Yeah.
But there was still part of this thing with another person. And here the guy is not there yet. The client isn't there. Even though it is something that you would later say to this guy.
Yes,
it's part of this conversation.
And I would say, if it's just from a methodological standpoint, that the reason that I don't trust Kerry, this is an example of why I don't trust Kerry, and that is that Kerry knows more about the situation and its in its bigger context, which may not be applicable to the smaller context. But there's no way that Kerry can separate out the bigger context from the smaller context, and therefore her memory is going to be screwed up by the large. Her memory for the detail is going to be screwed up by her knowledge about the major concept, and that's not a criticism of Kerry as a person. That is why I don't trust memory in general, my own or Kerry's or anybody else's.
Testing out the live chat, and I put a quote from the transcript. You guys see like a chat on the right?
Oh yeah.
The right of Riverside?
I don't see a chat.
It's bottom right. Like if you look at the
I see a chat.
squares. It says,
I could click on the chat.
I don't actually see the message though. It says
Click on the chat and then it'll appear.
That's in response.
oh, there we go. Yes, got it.
I posted Russ's question below. Russ asks, is that person present? Does it feel like I'm speaking to him or her or whatever?
Oh, okay.
So from that, it seems to me that the purple is still okay and the green is still okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mind that? So I'm guessing we've worn ourselves out, and we are probably a third of the way through, or maybe half the way through. I think it's hard to know. We may have considered more than half of the issues that have arisen.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's hard to predict. So the question is, do we want to do this again, and if so, when?
Yes.
Yes, the when. Oh my god, these trains are so loud.
So I'm going to save this document. I'm going to stop the share.
Since we're at the scheduling part, I think I'll stop recording. Nobody say anything interesting.
Okay. No guarantees. I'm always interested.
That's true.